back. Been a blast.
Nice job.
A new NCIS followed by new NCIS Hawaii. Tonight on CBS and streaming on Paramount+.
You're watching News 12 on your side.
Watch 1226 on your side, wherever you go. From the station that's on your side, this is News 12, first at 4.
Starting today, firefighter stations in city buildings will be empty around New York, with thousands against the city's COVID vaccine mandate.
We're not anti-vaccine. We have never been anti-vaccine. We're anti-mandate. As we all know, the city and the country wants to be past COVID.
1 in 5 firefighters are expected to miss the deadline, which brings the question of who will respond to emergencies. And most people love to enjoy spooky season, but like any other time of the year, there are still shootings and stabbings. We're taking a look at some of the violence on this year's Halloween. But first, a big change in the fight against COVID-19 could happen this week. Tomorrow, the CDC votes on whether or not to recommend COVID vaccines to kids ages 5 to 11. Once the vote happens, it's up to states to start their own vaccine rollout. Our Kennedy Harris is live in studio to talk about what our local doctors are expecting.
Every time a new group becomes eligible for the vaccine, they expect the first few weeks to have a very high demand. Some parents who've been waiting months to get their kids vaccinated could have that opportunity as soon as this week. The FDA approved Pfizer's vaccine for kids ages 5 to 11 on Friday, but before the needles actually go into arms, there's just 2 more steps. First, the CDC Advisory Committee will have to recommend a rollout plan. They're meeting tomorrow and Wednesday to do that. Next, the CDC director has to sign off on that plan. After that, more kids can roll up a sleeve. The Department of Public Health says they'll be ready to start administering them shortly after it's signed off. The rollout is expected to be open for all kids ages 5 to 11, but Dr. Weish with AU Health says the committee will consider a phased rollout, which would allow high-risk children to receive it first.
For example, those that have high-risk conditions, such as obesity, asthma, and other underlying conditions. And that's going to be the real topic of discussion and debate tomorrow and Wednesday by the CDC. I expect there to be demand before the holiday season coming up.
So what's different about this vaccine? Where will you be able to get it? And how many parents will be lining up? I'm working on a story for tonight at 6 o'clock to answer all of your burning questions.
Thanks so much, Kennedy, for that. We're looking forward to it. Now we're going to give you a live look over growth.
To go there, so we'll keep watching that for you. The Murdaugh mystery stretching beyond the legal family, how a 2015 hit and run is connected, and how a teenage boy's family is keeping his memory alive.
And today is the first day of November, and we are seasonal this afternoon, but looking to get below average later into the week. We'll have that full forecast coming up.
And one Braves fan taking her appreciation to the next level. How she's hoping to get a taste of victory when First at 5 continues.
Introducing.
I know. It's a tough logo to look at right now. We're all hoping for a bit of a different outcome at yesterday's game in Atlanta.
Of course, but fans are still pumped for the World Series. And as Andrew Goldstein reports, fans in Savannah are getting in on the fun too.
Sarah Floyd has always loved 2 things.
It takes a lot of practice. I've been doing this for a long time.
Baking.
That's it.
And baseball.
I've always been a Braves fan. My parents actually got married the night the Braves won the World Series in 1995. All of the wedding guests were huddled in the bar around a tiny TV watching them win the World Series.
As soon as the Braves got another chance at the title,
finishing them up now,
Floyd knew she had to make something for the occasion.
I was watching the World Series and I was like, well, this could be a good opportunity to make some Braves cookies. So I made some the night before, and that day I sold out in an hour.
In just a week, this became her life.
I do hand pipe everything.
Carefully tracing the team's logo with icing. Pumping out tray after tray of cookies by hand for customers at Little House Bakery.
I have been getting a lot of messages after I posted them asking when I'll have more. If they're doing well in a game, I usually just start baking in the middle, just so I can be ready for the next day.
Much like her Braves fandom, Floyd's skill for baking comes from family.
My mom taught me to bake when I was in middle school, and my grandmothers are really good cooks, and I've just kind of taught from them, just kind of figured it out from there.
Win or lose,
This is royal icing in a piping bag that I colored.
the cookies are here to stay.
Oh, I definitely think once baseball season starts up next year, I'll have to have them pretty consistently.
She talks about, how much she loves to bake and how her mom's a good cook. Can we point out what a good artist she is?
She's really precise.
I
That's
mean,
a perfect logo.
It is, and her hands have got to be so tired.
After a couple of hours of that?
Right, I know.
Really.
If you want in on some of these cookies without having to make a trip all the way over to Savannah, you can check out the Little House Bakery online.
I love that she waits until somewhere mid-game, maybe the 7th inning stretch, to get busy in the kitchen once she knows the outcome.
It's a good thing she's a Braves fan, because after all this, maybe she doesn't want to see that logo again for a while.
We need the Braves to do something special
Yes.
in Houston.
Yes.
Don't we all?
Yes.
All right, let's check in with First Alert Chief Meteorologist Riley Hale. I know you're a Braves fan, too.
Yeah, it was a tough game last night, but we're hoping they can pull it out. Game 6 tomorrow night, and hopefully the...
From the station that's on your side, News 12, First at 5, continues.
3,000 people turning up to the polls early to have a say in funding for the proposed James Brown Arena. This is the vision leaders of the project are hoping to realize with additional money, and that new arena would be built in place of this one, a familiar sight. The Richmond County voters already approved $25 million worth of SPLOST funding towards the project, but that's not enough to complete it.
Sloan O'Cone live for us outside the James Brown Arena with what election tomorrow means for you and what you need to know if you do want to vote. Sloan.
Well, tomorrow is your last chance if you're a Richmond County resident to get out and cast your vote to determine whether or not the Coliseum Authority gets to make their dream a reality. They say they only have one chance to do it right, and if the referendum doesn't pass, they don't have enough money to build the new arena. The Coliseum Authority says the current JBA is virtually functionally obsolete. It's nearly 50 years old. They say it can't just be renovated because, quote, it is simply not responsible to invest this kind of money into a building that is so outdated. They say there isn't enough room for larger events. The seats in place now don't have great views. They also say they're missing out on some events because the chairs can't move. They can't make ice for events like Disney on Ice, so that gives them a real lack of flexibility. So they're proposing investing $228 million to build the new arena, costing homeowners, businesses, any landowners about $100 more every year in property taxes for every $100,000 you own. And some Augustans agree it's time to buy in.
I just encourage everyone to research into the project and think about what the future of Augusta could hold if this project gets moving forward. We've seen a lot of growth downtown, and we want to keep that progress moving forward, and this will only continue to push that in the right direction.
And coming up at News 12 at 6 o'clock, I'm working on a story comparing what amenities the current JBA has to what the new proposed JBA will have, and why some voters feel so passionately about their vote.
Big question on the ballot tomorrow. Sloan, thanks very much. So if you want to vote, the polls open as usual from 7 in the morning till 7 in the evening. All the polling stations across Richmond County will be open for this, and you do need to go to your assigned precinct tomorrow. If you don't know where that is, you can head to our website and look that up fairly easily. Richmond County is not the only county voting tomorrow. Hepzibah, Blythe, Grovetown, they're all holding municipal elections. Those include elections for city council and planning commission seats.
Taking a look outside, can you believe it? It is
Tonight Central on CBS and streaming on Paramount Plus.
okay. It is almost time to fall back and switch the clocks back. But Governor Brian Kemp signed the bill to keep us on daylight savings time permanently. So, are we falling back or not? Well, according to the Georgia Senate bill that Kemp signed, it does say we stay on daylight saving time permanently, only if it is approved by Congress, which Congress has not done. Georgia, by the way, isn't the only state waiting. 19 others, including South Carolina, Tennessee, and Florida, are also in this holding pattern. I don't know. That hour when we go back is wonderful. I don't like it when we go forward. Never have been able to get used to it.
It would be strange, but I wish we could try it a year, not changing the clocks at all, just see how we like it.
I just don't like
I don't know that it works that way.
5:30 sunsets. 5:30 sunsets get me every year.
Yes.
I just can't stand that.
And it's not good.
Yeah.
And the farther you go to the northeast, the days get really, really short. And same on the west coast.
But here's the thing: if we just wait it out anyway, the times are where the sun sets is gonna change anyway, and the time too. I mean,
Naturally, yeah.
yeah. So I don't know.
Mm.
It's just funny that we all got together and said, "Hey, let's all change time."
Twice a year, we really complain about it.
Well, I think it was initially started so like families that had big families to work out in the farm,
Right.
they could go out and work before they had to switch the time change because if we didn't, then it'd be still dark at 8 a.m., which would still be a little bit weird. But all right, nonetheless, moving on to weather. Mid 70s this afternoon. It was get some much cooler temperatures though in that 7-day forecast in just about 2 minutes.
There's only one step left before kids ages 5 to 11 get the green light to get the vaccine.
The CDC will have the final say tomorrow. Here's News 12's Kennedy Harris live in our studio with how parents say they're feeling ahead of the rollout.
Well, this study by the Kaiser Family Foundation shows some interesting trends. When Pfizer first submitted their data to the FDA in September, their survey found 34% of parents said they get their child vaccinated right away, while 24% said they definitely like to wait. They definitely would not get their child vaccinated. But the most recent numbers from Thursday, the number of willing parents has actually decreased, while the number of parents who say they won't get their child vaccinated has increased. And you can see that the majority of parents are in this wait and see category, 33%. But still, doctors say they expect the demand to be very high when it all begins. By the end of this week, many vaccine providers might have a full house again, but this time the patients will be much smaller.
COVID-19 is the 8th leading cause of death in pediatrics over the last year. And so we know that this does impact pediatrics, both from a hospitalization and death standpoint. So it gives us another tool.
A tool AU Health and other providers are already preparing to distribute. AU Health has ordered more than 300 doses of Pfizer's vaccine for kids ages 5 to 11, while the Department of Public Health says they'll be ready to start as soon as the CDC signs off.
I expect there to be demand.
So what's different? The Pfizer shot for those 12 and up has 30 micrograms of vaccine. This one only has 1/3 of that. It also has an ingredient to allow for longer refrigerator stability. So instead of 30 days, it'll last 10 weeks in a refrigerator.
Which is really important when we start to think of low population areas, such as rural areas, and as we think about rollouts outside of the United States.
Dr. Weiss says pediatric offices will be the forefront of this distribution.
Have that conversation. Your pediatrician is willing and ready and available to have that conversation.
Well, it's no doubt things are looking better. Today, University Hospital tells us they've cared for a total of 3,426 COVID patients since March of 2020. 2,856 were able to recover and be discharged. They say cases continue to decline, but colder weather brings us indoors is a concern. They say we have the people who've gotten vaccinated to thank for this decline in cases.
All right, interesting insight into what parents were thinking. Thanks for that, Kennedy. If you live in Richmond County, tomorrow is the day. It is your last chance to weigh in on whether you want to help pay for the new James Brown Arena. It's Election Day, and the $235 million needed to bring these plans to life will be on the ballot. And that's the only thing on the ballot. News 12 Sloan Cone live now from the JBA with what voters need to know before casting that vote. Well, a little over 3,000 people have already turned out to cast their vote on what they want the future of the JBA to be. And most special elections like these don't have big turnouts. The last special election had 8,000 votes in total, and 2,500 of those were cast early. And like I said, at 3,000 already for the JBA. And I spoke to one local man earlier today who says he's ready to see some changes.
The arena behind me is over 40 years old, and we definitely need an upgrade.
The nearly 50-year-old building has approximately 7,000 seats. Limited parking, selling preferred parking tickets for a spot close by. General parking is in the 7th or 8th Street lots for $5. It doesn't have the ability to be adjusted for bigger and more elaborate events, and only has 2-star dressing rooms and 2 large dressing rooms, and broken ice-making equipment.
Current arena has done its purpose, and it's time we invest in a new one and really kind of liven it up.
The current JBA has acts like Riley Green, Dancing with the Stars Live, Hairspray, and a Magical Cirque Christmas on their agenda. But the Coliseum Authority says the JBA is functionally obsolete. And some residents like David Petler agree.
They're going to other markets, and that's a missed opportunity for Augusta. You know, if we're going to be a leader here in Georgia for economic growth, we need to look at exactly what is going on with our entertainment aspect of our city.
The new building would have 11,000 seats with luxury options and club-level experiences, rooftop terraces to see the city's skyline, a ballroom, bringing similar but bigger mid-sized acts like Cirque du Soleil, rodeos, basketball, keeping events like monster trucks. As for the parking situation, it would also be similar, purchasing one of about 300 limited spots on site and promoting parking across downtown. They hope it would be a catalyst for economic growth in the area over the next 30 years.
The polls will be open all day tomorrow from 7 to 7. You can go ahead and look at your voter registration card to find out where to go. And coming up on News 12 at 11, our Claire Allen is working on a story about what new construction would bring in for new acts and how we compare to the rest of the region. Okay, thanks for that update, Sloan. Well, it is Election Day in Grovetown tomorrow, too, and Councilwomen Deborah Fisher and Sylvia Martin are up for re-election there, while Shelley Candian is running for the first time. She's a former member of the city's Planning Commission. The polls open from 7 to 7. The city says you must vote at your designated precinct, so take a look at that if you need to at Georgia Votes Online.
Well, temperatures today were right where they should be for the first day of November, but these will be getting below average for the rest of the week. We'll have a look at that full forecast coming up.
Plus, when it comes to COVID-19, it's not always a quick recovery. Millions left with lingering symptoms, some unable to work. What resources are available to you? The I-Team investigates next.
The accident.
A News 12 investigation is getting some attention in Washington, D.C.
It all started more than 7 months ago when our I-Team started taking a closer look at COVID long haulers, those left with symptoms months, even a year later after catching COVID.
The Department of Labor was watching and asked for an interview with our own Meredith Anderson.
That's because they agreed with the evidence we uncovered about COVID's aftermath. For some, it's not just debilitating. It could be a disability. When we first met Brandy Hood back in March,
Showering for me is the worst.
she was already worn out,
It takes everything I have.
and our interview hadn't even started yet.
It is exhausting.
Brandy tested positive for COVID in October of 2020 and had a relatively mild case. Then came the shortness of breath, overwhelming fatigue, and heart problems. She developed digestive issues. Her hair was falling out. The list goes on, but her life as she knew it basically stopped. You were a different person than the person we talked to a while back.
I feel like a different person. This is me. This is the person that I missed for about 10 months.
I mean, you were walking through the halls. It's like nothing ever happened. And the last time we saw you, you were using a walker.
I've come a long way.
Brandy is now back at Screven County High School on light duty. After her short-term disability ran out, she lost her full-time job as a Spanish teacher.
I had my dream job at my dream school, and I miss it very much. But I'm happy to be here in any capacity.
Not every long hauler is so lucky. A recent study by the University of Oxford and the National Institute for Health Research found more than a third of those infected with COVID developed at least one of these core long COVID symptoms 3 to 6 months after infection. The I-Team crunched the numbers, and here's what we found. The Department of Labor estimates there are more than 161 million people in the U.S. workforce. The CDC estimates 1 in 3 Americans have been infected with COVID. Factor in the study we just mentioned, and we could be looking at almost 2 million American workers dealing with long-haul symptoms. A recent publication, however, expects the number to end up being a lot larger than that. Doctors warned in the New England Journal of Medicine, we can conservatively expect more than 15 million cases of long COVID resulting from this pandemic. Adding, the average age of patients with long COVID is about 40, which means that the majority are in their prime working years. That's a bigger number than when the I-Team first started tracking this. Even before the Delta variant hit our area, AU's chief medical health officer told us long-haul symptoms could affect our workforce.
I would be shocked if we did not see a large number of people that end up claiming some type of a disability status because of the long-term effects of COVID.
Leaders in Washington, D.C. requested to sit down with the I-Team after our investigation into backlogged disability claims. They want to make sure local long haulers know the Americans with Disabilities Act is on their side.
It's the law.
Taryn Williams is the Assistant Secretary of Labor for Disability Employment Policy. Tracy DeFritas is the lead consultant for the Job Accommodation Network.
It's the same with long haul COVID as it is with any chronic medical condition.
Meaning, the ADA didn't change to include long COVID. Long COVID is already included if it is a physical or mental impairment that substantially limits one or more major life activities. It's broad, and the law is written that way on purpose. So is the part about what employers need to do about it.
It's not a one size fits all. It's not a here's a list of these accommodations that are reasonable. You have to look at each situation on a case by case basis.
And the government is taking COVID cases seriously. The I-Team uncovered this lawsuit. It is the first ever filed by the EEOC about an ADA accommodation related to COVID-19. And it happened nearby, just outside of Atlanta. When a company called ISS Facility Services reopened its office in Covington after the shutdown, a woman with a lung condition wanted to continue working remotely. She specifically requested to work from home 2 days per week with frequent breaks while working on site. The lawsuit says she submitted documentation that her severe pulmonary disease made her high risk for contracting COVID-19. Her request was denied, but she alleges other managers were allowed to work from home. Shortly after, the lawsuit says she was fired in retaliation, which is illegal. There may be some bosses who are thinking, COVID's not real, long haul is not real. How do we even begin to move forward if say, you're an employee of a company that kind of is thinking that way?
We at the Department of Labor know and truly understand it's the right thing for workers and families. We think it's the smart thing to do for our nation's economy.
Brandy says her goal all along was to get back to work. She even asked her principal to measure the walk to her classroom.
I think it was like 450 yards, something like that. And then I had my husband measure it out in the backyard. And that was my goal. I was going to walk that far without a walker.
It took her a long time, but she made it.
That was a big deal.
And she wants you to know you can make it too.
I would encourage people to just hang in there. It does get better.
It does. World of difference with her. World of difference.
I remember. I mean, it's wild.
Yeah, and Brandy calls COVID the gift that keeps on giving. After that very first interview with us, she said she tested positive for Lyme disease and Epstein-Barr virus. Her doctor apparently says both were dormant in her body, and when she contracted COVID, that the virus kind of reignited these in her body, and then she was dealing with them. It just reactivated.
And those are all serious on their own. And
Right.
to have your body trying to cope with all that, but it's just a window into what so many people are dealing with.
It really is. And you said there are resources available for people who want to find out more about all of this.
Yes, and we have put all of that on our website and our WRDW app. The Department of Labor has a lot of information. So does OSHA. If you want to take a look at ADA requirements to see maybe if your employer might need to do something to help you, the law does cover you. So it's a good idea to at least ask questions.
Right, yeah.
This may affect a lot of people, so yeah, it's good to know. Good information there. Thank you, Meredith. Let's have a look outside. I-20, not too far from the TV